If you've ever texted a secret code that only your crew would understand, this is about the night that code saved my life. At 3 a.m., his whisper was right at my ear. Nobody's coming fast enough. 12 armored shadows appeared at our door minutes later. I thought I was prey in my own mother's house. Turns out I'd accidentally been working at the only place that could summon the pack faster than he calculated. The bruises on my throat hadn't even formed when the red and blue lights flooded our living room. My name is Kayla Hart, and at 3:02 a.m., the door hinged to my childhood bedroom screamed its rusty warning. The smell hit before I saw him cheap whiskey mixed with that particular brand of menthol cigarettes Dale always kept in his truck's glove compartment. My phone slipped from my fingers onto the carpet, the screen's glow dying as it landed face down. "You awake, princess?" Dale's silhouette filled the doorway, shoulders swaying slightly. The hallway light behind him created a halo effect that would have been ironic if I believed in that sort of thing anymore. "We need to discuss your attitude at dinner." My earbuds were still plugged into the phone, the right one dangled against my pillow. The left one somehow still in my ear. The microphone rested near my collarbone. I'd fallen asleep listening to true crime podcasts, the same ones that taught me to memorize exits and keep weapons within reach. Except Dale had removed the lock from my door 3 months ago. "For safety," he'd said. "I'm listening," I whispered, pulling myself up against the headboard. The charging cable was wrapped around my left hand, not much, but something. The distance between us may be 8 feet. The alarm panel downstairs armed for perimeter only, not motion. That's the problem. He stepped into the room, and the Ring doorbell camera I'd installed last week would catch nothing from this angle. You listen, but you don't hear. You work at that place with all those cops, and suddenly you think you're something special. The digital clock on my nightstand flipped to 3:03. "Lake shift," I breathed into the microphone, barely moving my lips. Just 2 words. A joke between Tessa Brooks and me about the weird calls we'd get during overnight shifts near the reservoir. Except tonight, in the middle of my scheduled night off, those words meant something else entirely. Dale lunged forward, faster than a drunk man should move. His hand caught my wrist holding the charging cable, twisted hard. My shoulder hit the wall with a crack that could have been plaster or bone. The world tilted, narrowed, but somewhere 23 miles away in a basement room lit by dozens of monitors, Tessa's training kicked in. She'd heard those 2 words through my phone's mic, still transmitting through the earbuds. Her fingers flew across her keyboard, initiating Protocol 7 Officer Down, at-risk dispatcher. My address populated instantly from my employee file. The nature code auto-filled domestic violence in progress. Emergency personnel at risk. Priority 1. But I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was Dale's breath on my face, his hand moving to my throat, and the charging cable cutting into my palm as I tried to maintain any barrier between us. The doorbell camera kept recording the empty front porch. My mother slept 2 doors down. Ambient deep, the white noise machine I'd bought her last Christmas drowning out everything. "Nobody's coming," Dale said, his grip tightening. "Nobody ever comes for girls who don't know their place." 3:04 a.m. In the comm center, Tessa pushed back from her station, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos. "She just said lake shift. That's Kayla's duress code. She's at home with that piece of shit stepfather." Her supervisor, Lieutenant Marisol Vega, was already moving. How many units can we stack?" 12 within a 4-minute response time. Tessa's screen lit up with available call signs. "She's one of ours." The first cruiser flipped its lights on at 3:05, then another, then 10 more. But in my bedroom, time moved differently. Each second stretched like taffy, Dale's weight pressing me into the mattress, the world contracting to the span of his hands and my rapidly shrinking airway. I'd prepared for this, installed cameras, documented bruises, filed reports that went nowhere. I'd done everything right, everything legal, everything by the book. The book was about to arrive in 12 police cruisers, lights blazing, Sirens cutting through the suburban piece of Marion County. They were coming for one of their own, not a cop, but someone who sat in that basement every night, sending help to strangers, memorizing badge numbers, learning the rhythm of their voices over the radio. Dale didn't know about the 12-car convoy racing through empty streets. He didn't know about the duress code, or the way dispatchers protect each other, or how lake shift had just turned my bedroom into the highest priority call in 3 counties. All he knew was that he was winning. Again. Like he always did in the darkness of this house. All I knew was that I had to survive the next 3 minutes. The first time I met Dale Mercer, I was 15 and standing in our kitchen, watching him fix the garbage disposal my mother had been ignoring for 3 months. Dad had been gone for 3 years by then, a workplace accident at the construction site that left Mom with a settlement check and a silence she filled with wine and QVC purchases. "Your mom says you're good with numbers," Dale had said, not looking up from under the sink. His tool belt jangled like prison keys. "That's useful in a woman." I remember the way he said useful like I was a kitchen appliance he was appraising. Before Dale, our house in Marion County had been small but warm. Dad Grant Hart, local 38 electrician, used to let me help him rewire outlets in the garage, teaching me to respect electricity. "It'll kill you if you're careless," he'd say, "but treat it right, and it'll light up your whole world." The irony wasn't lost on me that exposed wiring at a job site eventually stopped his heart. Mom met Dale at grief counseling, though she stopped going after their 3rd date. He was a roofing contractor who somehow always had cash but never seemed to work much. He moved in after 6 months, bringing nothing but a duffel bag and a special kind of darkness that settled into our corners like black mold. "Family is discipline," he announced at my 16th birthday dinner, fastening a thin gold chain around my neck without asking. The clasp was tight. "And discipline is love." Mom smiled into her wine glass. The chain felt like a collar. The rules started small. Bedroom doors stay cracked. Phone bills itemized and reviewed. Receipts for everything, even school lunch. "I pay the bills," he'd say, spreading paperwork across the dinner table like evidence. "So I need to know where every cent goes." By senior year, I'd learned his patterns. Monday through Thursday, he'd patrol the house from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., checking my homework, examining my browser history, sniffing my clothes for cigarette smoke I never produced. Fridays brought beer and false joviality. Saturdays meant Mom crying quietly in their bedroom while he watched TV at volumes that rattled the windows. Sundays were the worst. Church clothes and bruising grips on my upper arm, steering me through services where he'd nod along to sermons about obedience. Summit Ridge Community College became my first escape route. General studies because Dale had opinions about appropriate careers for females. But what he didn't know was that I was taking every criminal justice elective available. I learned about cycles of abuse, about documentation, about the difference between probable cause and reasonable suspicion. Then I found the job posting for Tri-County Emergency Communications. Entry-level dispatcher. No experience required. Will train. The pay wasn't much, but it was mine. More importantly, it was a world Dale couldn't enter a basement full of monitors and protocols and people who dealt with monsters professionally. Training lasted 12 weeks. I memorized 10 codes, practiced calm voices while instructors screamed scenarios at me, learned to type while listening to 3 conversations simultaneously. But the most important thing I learned wasn't in any manual dispatchers protect their own. You live with that contractor. Write Dale something," Tessa had asked during a night shift, 3 months into the job. She'd seen him drop me off, watched how I flinched when his truck pulled into the parking lot. "My stepfather," I'd corrected, the words bitter as aspirin. "Uh-huh." She'd studied me over her coffee cup. "You know we handle about 15 domestics per shift. I can spot the signs from space." That's when she taught me about duress codes, unofficial ones, the kind that don't go in training manuals. "Pick something casual," she'd advised. "Something you might actually say, but not often. If I ever hear it out of context, I'll know." Lake shift. I'd chosen. thinking of the reservoir where Dad had taught me to fish, before the accident, before Dale, before the chain around my neck became a metaphor I couldn't escape. Mom got quieter as I got stronger. By the time I was 25, she was a ghost who haunted her own house, drifting between bedroom and kitchen, avoiding eye contact like it might trigger an avalanche. When I tried to talk to her about leaving, she'd touch the bruises on her wrists absently and change the subject to grocery lists. "He wasn't always like this," she'd sometimes whisper, though we both knew that was a lie. He'd always been exactly like this. We just hadn't known what to look for in the beginning, when his control looked like concern and his possession looked like love. The night before, everything changed. I'd stood in my childhood bedroom, looking at the absent lock on my door, the Ring camera box hidden in my closet, the emergency bag packed under my bed. I wasn't running anymore. I was building a case. Dale thought he was the predator in this house. He was about to learn what happens when prey grows teeth. The first police report sits in my desk drawer, dated 18 months ago. Responding Officer Badge 447 wrote, "Verbal domestic dispute. No evidence of physical altercation," while Dale smiled his contractor's smile and explained how emotional young women could get. I'd stood there with my ribs aching from where he'd shoved me into the refrigerator, watching the officer nod sympathetically at Dale's performance. "Family disagreement," the officer had concluded, not even looking at me. "Try to work it out." I learned that night that bruises under clothing don't count. Words don't count. Fear doesn't count. What counts is evidence, documentation, patterns that even the most dismissive cop can't ignore. So I became a collector. My phone holds 43 audio files, labeled like dispatches, date, time, duration. Dale threatening to break my fingers if I was late again. Dale explaining how accidents happen to girls who don't listen. Dale's voice, slurred with whiskey, describing what he'd do if I ever tried to leave. Each file backed up to 3 different cloud services, passwords that even the NSA would struggle with. The photos are harder to look at. Purple fingerprints on my upper arms, tagged 0815, 2024, grabbed during breakfast. A split lip from walking into the door. Metadata showing 11:43 p.m., 2024, bathroom mirror. Each image shot in the harsh light of LED bulbs. No filters, no mercy. The kind of photos that would make a jury flinch. Lieutenant Marisol Vega taught me the proper protocol during a slow Tuesday night shift. She'd been reviewing my timestamps, noticed how I'd lag after certain personal calls. "You building a case?" she'd asked directly, her 20 years of experience cutting through any pretense. "Trying to," I'd admitted. She'd pulled up a screen I'd never seen before, the domestic violence documentation protocol used for prosecutions. Time, date, location, witnesses, if any. Photos within an hour of incident. Medical attention sought, even if refused. Save every text, every voicemail. Create a timeline. Make it so airtight that even a public defender fresh out of law school could convict. "What about protection orders?" I'd asked. "Emergency protective orders are good for 72 hours if there's immediate danger. But here's what they don't tell you: the paper doesn't stop bullets or fists. It just makes the crime easier to prosecute after." The neighbors knew. Mrs. Patterson next door had called the police twice, reporting concerning sounds from our house. Both times. Dale had intercepted the officers at the door, explaining about the TV being too loud. Action movies. You know how it is. The officers never asked to come in, never asked to see me or Mom. Mr. Yamoto across the street had installed a new security camera that happened to cover part of our driveway. "For package thieves?" he'd said loudly while I was getting mail, making eye contact that said he knew exactly what he was documenting. But knowing and proving are different creatures entirely. The legal aid lawyer I'd consulted paid for in cash. Meeting at a coffee shop 2 towns over had been blunt. Without physical evidence of immediate threat, without your mother's cooperation, without him violating an existing order, your options are limited. The system is reactive, not proactive. So I wait until he really hurts me. "I'm not saying that," she'd replied carefully. "I'm saying document everything, create patterns, show escalation, and have an exit strategy that doesn't depend on the legal system moving quickly." Mom called me at work once, 214 shift change chaos providing cover for personal calls. Her voice was small, scared, but not scared enough. "I'm okay," she'd whispered. "Mom, you don't have to." The line went dead. When I called back, Dale answered, his voice syrup-sweet. "Your mother's sleeping. She needs her rest. So do you." Tessa had witnessed that call, seen my hands shake as I returned to my station. That's when we'd made the late shift protocol official among our crew, not in any manual, not in any system, but carved into the invisible network that kept us all safer. If any of us said those words outside normal context, every available unit would roll. "We can't always save everyone," Lieutenant Vega had said during that same training session, "but we damn well save our own." The case file I'd built lived in a safety deposit box at a bank Dale didn't know about, paid for with cash tips from the pizza delivery job I'd worked in college. Copies with Tessa, copies with Lieutenant Vega, copies with the legal aid lawyer, a paper trail spreading like roots, waiting for the right moment to surface. The Thursday before everything changed, I'd filed my 5th police report. Officer Daniels, badge 892, had actually taken photos of the bruises on my neck, had written visible injury consistent with strangulation attempt in official language that couldn't be dismissed. "Why don't you just leave?" he'd asked, genuinely confused. "Because leaving is when they kill you. Because Mom won't come. Because running means he wins. Because I'd rather fight on ground I'd prepared than flee to somewhere he'd find me anyway." But I didn't say any of that. I just said, "I'm working on it." The law is a slow machine, grinding forward in increments measured in court dates and continuances. But dispatch is immediate, visceral, measured in heartbeats and held breaths. I was about to make the slow machine move very, very fast. The first tire was slashed on a Monday. Clean cut, professional, the kind that would blow out at highway speed if I hadn't noticed the subtle lean of my Honda when I walked to the parking lot after my shift. Dale had Alibi's job site 40 miles away, 3 crew members who'd swear he never left. But I knew his knife work, recognized the angle of the cut from years of watching him slice everything from steaks to cardboard with the same violent precision. Tuesday brought the screws, drywall screws, specifically, scattered like caltrops at the base of our front steps where only someone leaving the house would step. Mom found them first, her slippers protecting her from what was meant for my work boots. Dale helped her clean them up, shaking his head about neighborhood kids. These pranks getting out of hand. Maybe we should install better lighting. By Wednesday, the calls started. Unknown number. Blocked caller ID. Always between 2 and 3 mem. When Dale was supposedly asleep beside Mom, just breathing at first. Then country radio playing softly in the background, the same station preset in his truck. I recorded them all, watching the waveforms spike with each exhale, building my archive of proof. The email came Thursday evening while I was at work. My personal Gmail, the one I'd thought Dale didn't know about. A photo attachment our backyard swing set from when I was 8, taken recently based on the new neighbor's fence visible in the corner. A red spray-painted X covered the seat where I used to pump my legs toward the sky, back when this house meant safety. "He still has a key," I told Tessa during break, showing her the photo on my phone. "Change the locks," she said immediately. "He's on the deed. He has legal right to access." "Then get cameras, inside ones." I'd already ordered them. Ring doorbell for the front, Wise cams for the hallways, a hidden nanny cam for my bedroom disguised as a phone charger. The credit card statement would come to my work address. Installation scheduled for Saturday while Dale claimed he'd be at a job site. Friday's escalation was subtler. My work badge, always kept in my car's cup holder, moved to the passenger seat. Nothing missing, nothing damaged, just moved, touched. A reminder that locked doors were theater, that safety was an illusion he could shatter whenever he chose. Lieutenant Vega noticed me checking the parking lot cameras obsessively that shift. "He's escalating," she observed, not a question. The pattern's accelerating, shorter intervals between incidents. You could stay with someone? I tried. He showed up at Tessa's apartment complex, just sat in his truck for 3 hours. Never got out, never threatened anyone, nothing illegal. But the message was clear. She pulled up a map on her screen, marking addresses. These are the nearest units to your house during each shift. Response time from each position. If something happens, lake shift, I know. Saturday arrived gray and humid, the kind of weather that makes violence feel inevitable. I installed the cameras while Dale was supposedly across town. Mom watched from her bedroom doorway, not helping but not stopping me either. Her silence had graduated from complicity to its own form of communication. He'll see them, she finally said. That's the point. The doorbell cam caught him that night at 2:17 a.m., testing his key in the lock before remembering the new hardware. Baseball cap pulled low, right shoulder dipping the way it did when his back bothered him, identifiable characteristics that would matter in court. He stood there for 43 seconds, just staring at the camera, before walking back to his truck. Sunday brought the neighbor's cat. Whiskers. Dead on our porch. Natural causes. Dale insisted when Mom found it. Probably ate something bad. These things happen. But I'd seen Whiskers alive at 11 p.m., and the security footage had a convenient 4-minute gap at 2:43 a.m., just long enough for someone familiar with camera angles to work unseen. You need to leave. My old college roommate texted after I'd sent her updates. This is beyond stalking. But leaving meant starting over with no documentation, no support system, no witnesses. It meant abandoning Mom to face him alone. It meant letting him win through fear instead of losing through law. The smart lock installation was my last electronic fortification. Codes instead of keys. Access logs uploaded to the cloud. Automatic alerts for failed entry attempts. Dale watched me install it Sunday evening. Arms crossed. That particular smile that meant he was planning something. Awful lot of security for a little girl who works answering phones, he said. Awful lot of interest in my security for someone who doesn't live here anymore. I replied. Technically, he'd been sleeping at his shop for 3 days, though his clothes remained in Mom's closet. I pay the mortgage. This is my house. And I pay rent. That makes me a tenant with rights. His jaw clenched. We both knew I'd been studying, preparing, building something he couldn't charm or muscle his way through. That night, I arranged my evidence in chronological order: photos, recordings, emails, police reports, camera footage, a story told in timestamps and pixels, building toward something. I created automated messages scheduled to send if I didn't check in every 12 hours insurance policies addressed to Lieutenant Vega, to the district attorney's office, to the local news station that loved scandals involving public servants. At 11:55 p.m., I stood in my childhood bedroom, phone charged, earbuds in, location services on. The house felt like a held breath, like the moment between lightning and thunder. I wasn't asking for rescue anymore. I was creating conditions where rescue would be inevitable, immediate, and overwhelming. Dale thought he was tightening a noose. He was actually loading my gun. 4:30 p.m. I arrived at Mom's house with a tactical precision that would have made Lieutenant Vega proud. Backup phone tucked under the living room couch cushions. Already signed into my accounts. Location sharing active. The main phone in my pocket, charged to full, airplane mode off. Recording app set to activate with double tap. A third burner phone hidden in the bathroom air vent, purchased with cash, programmed with only one number, Tessa's personal cell. You're home, Mom observed from the kitchen, her wine glass already half empty despite the early hour. The observation carried weight. This wasn't my home anymore. Hadn't been since I'd signed the lease on my studio apartment 6 months ago. Thought we could have dinner, I said, setting down a grocery bag filled with ingredients for her favorite pasta. Peace offerings wrapped in cellophane and false normalcy. 7:10 p. Dale's truck growled into the driveway, country music bleeding through the windows. I watched him through the Ring app on my phone. Counted the seconds between engine off and door slam. 8 seconds he was drunk, but not wasted. The dangerous kind of drunk where violence still had coordination. Well, well, the prodigal daughter graces us, he announced, bringing the smell of sawdust and beer into Mom's kitchen. His work boots left dirt trails I didn't mention. Just visiting. I kept my voice neutral, chopping onions with careful strokes. Visiting. Like we're strangers now. He pulled a beer from the fridge, the cap hitting the floor and staying there. Your mother and I were just fine without you. Mom retreated upstairs, her signature move when tension reached certain frequencies. I heard her door close, the white noise machine starting up, her pharmaceutical escape already beginning. 9:40 p.m. I set up the automation on my main phone. If the accelerometer detected a drop exceeding normal parameters thrown, knocked from hands. Sudden fall, it would trigger a cascade location ping to Tessa. Emergency SOS to Lieutenant Vega's work phone, and activation of every camera within Bluetooth range. Technology as witness, physics as trigger. You think you're smart, Dale said from the living room, his 6th beer sweating rings on Mom's coffee table. With your little job, your protocols, your cameras. I didn't respond, focusing on loading the dishwasher with deliberate calm. But you're still just Grant Hart's daughter, weak stock. Your daddy couldn't handle real work, and you can't handle real life. The mention of Dad was calculated, meant to crack my composure. I dried my hands slowly, each finger deliberate, before turning to face him. Real life, I repeated. Like drinking yourself stupid every night, like terrorizing women to feel powerful. His eyes narrowed. Watch your mouth. Or what you'll hurt me. I pulled out my phone, held it visible. Should I document this threat too? Add it to the collection. 11:55 p.m. The house had gone quiet in that specific way that precedes storms. Dale had retreated to the garage, Mom's snoring barely audible through her closed door. I performed final checks, earbuds connected, battery sufficient, shortcuts enabled. The phrase lake shift set to speed text with a single swipe pattern I could execute blind. I changed into sleep clothes, soft pants that wouldn't restrict movement, a tank top that would show bruises clearly in photos. Calculated vulnerability. Midnight through the baby monitor app connected to the hallway camera. I watched Dale stumble from the garage to the kitchen, ice rattling in a glass, the distinctive glug of whiskey pouring past responsible amounts. His shadow lingered at the bottom of the stairs. 12:43 a.m. His footsteps on the stairs, that third step that always creaked under weight. I positioned myself back to headboard, phone in reach, charging cable loose but accessible. The earbuds stayed in, lifeline to the outside world. Don't antagonize him, Mom had whispered earlier while Dale was outside. Just get through the night. But I wasn't trying to get through anymore. I was trying to get out and take him with me. 1:15 a.m. The doorknob to my room turned slowly. Testing. The new smart lock held, its mechanism clicking softly as it denied access. Through the app, I watched him input random codes. Failed attempt logged. Failed attempt logged. Failed attempt logged. 1:30 a.m. Silence more dangerous than noise. He was thinking, planning, the drunk fog lifting into focused rage. I knew this pattern, had survived it before. But tonight was different. Tonight, every move was documented, uploaded, witnessed by the cloud. 2:20 a.m. The screwdriver sound against the door hinges. He'd done this before at the old apartment, removed doors rather than break them. No property damage, no evidence. Smart in that specific way, abusers evolve their tactics. I typed out a message to Tessa. He's removing my door. Stand by. Not lake shift yet, not the emergency code, just documentation, breadcrumbs leading to the inevitable. 2:45 a.m. The door lifted free from its frame, Dale setting it quietly against the hallway wall. Professional work, almost silent. The cameras caught it all, his methodical process, the careful placement, the predatory patience. Can't lock me out of my own house, he said softly, still in the hallway. Your fancy locks don't mean shit when I paid for the walls they're attached to. 258A, He stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall light, weighing his options. I kept my breathing steady, didn't flinch, didn't provoke. The phone remained visible in my hand, threat and promise combined. "You awake, princess?" he finally asked. The same question from a lifetime ago, from 100 nights before. "I'm awake," I answered, finger hovering over the emergency shortcut. "Good. We need to discuss your attitude." 3:01 a.m. The digital clock flipped its numbers like a starting gun. He stepped into the room. Everything I'd built, planned, documented it all came down to the next 3 minutes and 2 words. 3 a.m. His fist connected with my cheekbone before I could process he'd moved. The physics of violence momentum times mass equals my head snapping back into the corner of the nightstand. Stars burst across my vision. Copper flooded my mouth, and the ring camera in the hallway captured his face perfectly contorted with rage, undeniably identifiable. The phone flew from my hand, triggered the accelerometer. Somewhere in the digital ether, automated messages fired GPS coordinates, emergency flags, the silent scream of technology calling for help. "Lake shift," I managed to whisper into the dangling earbud mic, blood making the words thick. "Lake shift." Dale's hand found my throat, lifting me partially off the bed. "What did you say?" I wrapped the charging cable around his wrist instead of answering, yanked hard enough to break his grip for exactly 1.5 seconds, long enough to roll sideways, to create distance, to let the mic pick up my voice clearly. "Lake shift, Dale Mercer, active assault." 3:01 a.m., 23 miles away. Tessa's training kicked in like muscle memory. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Priority 1 domestic dispatcher under attack. Code 3 response requested. The address populated from my employee file. The system lit up like Christmas. "Stack everything," Lieutenant Vega commanded, already pulling units from other calls. "I want every available car." The dispatch board exploded. Unit 27 diverted from traffic stop. Unit 31 abandoned a coffee run. Unit 45 and 46 were partners, already moving before the formal call. Unit 52 had been parked 2 blocks away. Officer Chen monitoring an unrelated situation. Units 54, 61, 63 rolling from the north sector. Units 71, 74 from downtown. Unit 80 was off duty, but monitoring the radio, he flipped his lights on anyway. Unit 82, the sergeant, broke every protocol by leaving his sector uncovered. 12 units en route, Tessa announced, her voice carrying through the comm center. ETA 3 minutes 40 seconds for lead vehicle. 3:02 a.m. Dale dragged me by my hair toward the hallway, away from the cameras he thought he'd spotted, but the nanny cam disguised as a charger kept recording, infrared vision painting us both in ghostly clarity. My bare feet scrambled for purchase on the carpet, nails digging into his forearms, leaving DNA evidence under my fingernails. "You think you're clever?" His breath was hot, sour, whiskey and violence. "Calling your cop friends." I triggered the silent alarm on the security panel with my elbow as he dragged me past not the audible siren, but the one that fed directly to the monitoring company and, by extension, to local dispatch. Another layer of verification, another breadcrumb in the trail. 3:03 a.m. In the living room now. Dale threw me against the couch. My shoulder hit the wooden frame, something cracking that might have been furniture or bone. The backup phone under the cushions dug into my ribs, still recording, still transmitting, still documenting everything. "Nobody's coming fast enough," he said, advancing slowly now, savoring the moment. "Response time from downtown is 12 minutes minimum. I know. I've timed it." But he'd calculated wrong. He'd assumed normal response times, standard protocols, typical priority levels. He didn't understand that 1 of ours meant every traffic law suspended, every red light ignored, every safety protocol temporarily shelved. 3:04 a.m. The smart speaker on the kitchen counter, still logged into my account, suddenly crackled to life. Tessa had patched the dispatch audio through my device settings, a violation of a dozen protocols she'd pay for later, but didn't care about now. Unit 27 60 seconds out. Unit 31 90 seconds. Unit 45 46 2 minutes. Stack formation authorized. Stage for simultaneous entry. Dale froze, his hand still raised for another strike. The voices continued, clinical and certain. Unit 52 on scene, holding for backup. Unit 54 45 seconds. All units switched to tactical channel. Red and blue lights started painting the walls, faint at first, then stronger. Not one or two cars. Not the typical domestic response. A fucking armada. 3:05 a.m. Dale's hand closed on my throat again. Desperation replacing calculation. You orchestrated this. I couldn't speak with his fingers crushing my windpipe, but I didn't need to. The house was about to become evidence. Every surface would be photographed, every bruise documented, every second of footage preserved. The first siren wailed, not distant, but right outside. Then another. A symphony of justice approaching at 120 miles per hour through suburban streets. Dale looked toward the window, finally understanding. They weren't coming to mediate a domestic dispute. They weren't coming to take a report. They were coming for blood mine or his, depending on the next 30 seconds. This isn't over, he growled, fingers tightening. My vision tunneled, darkness creeping from the edges. But through the growing void, I saw the first flashlight beam cut through our front window, heard the first fist pound the door, felt the whole house shake as 12 cars worth of adrenaline and protective rage converged on our lawn. 3:06 a.m. The door didn't open. It exploded. 3:06 a.m. The door frame splintered under the battering ram's first hit. Wood and metal gave way to trained violence, the kind that had legal authority behind it. 12 officers flooded through the breach like water through a broken dam, their flashlights turning our living room into a stadium, voices overlapping in controlled chaos. Police, show your hands. Get on the ground now. Release her now. Dale's fingers loosened from my throat, not from compliance, but from shock. He'd expected maybe 2 officers, maybe a conversation, maybe his usual charm offensive. Not this. Not 12 bodies in tactical gear filling every exit, every corner, every possible escape route. Officer Rodriguez reached us first, his body camera recording everything in high definition. Sir, remove your hands from her neck. Now. Dale raised his hands slowly, that contractor's smile trying to surface. Officers, this is a misunderstanding. Rodriguez's partner, Officer Huang, moved behind Dale with practiced efficiency. Hands behind your back. This is my house. That's my stepdaughter. We were just... Stop talking. Rodriguez's voice carried no negotiation. 2 more officers flanked Dale while Huang pulled his arms back, the mechanical click of handcuffs cutting through Dale's protests. She's mentally unstable. Check her records. She makes things up. The armbar technique happened so fast I barely saw it. One moment Dale was talking, the next he was face down on Mom's carpet. 3 officers controlling his position while a 4th applied leg restraints. Professional, efficient, and completely legal given his resistance. 3:07 a.m. EMT Sarah Miller appeared at my side, her partner already opening a medical kit. Kayla, I'm Sarah. Can you breathe okay? I nodded, then immediately vomited thin bile and fear splashing the coffee table. My throat felt like crushed gravel, each breath a conscious effort. Don't try to talk, Sarah said, pressing an oxygen mask to my face while her partner checked my pupils with a penlight. We've got you. The room filled with overlapping conversations. Central confirmed photographer en route. Evidence tech standing by. Get those cameras before anyone touches them. Ma'am, are you the homeowner? We need you to step outside. Mom stood at the top of the stairs, her white noise machine still humming behind her. She looked small, confused, blinking in the harsh light like something nocturnal caught in headlights. Officer Garrett, the only female officer on scene, approached her slowly. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Garrett. Your daughter's safe now." "Can you come with me? 308, Dale tried one more time, his voice muffled against the carpet. "This is excessive force. I want my lawyer. She attacked me first. Check her fingernails. That's my blood." Sergeant Mills crouched beside him, his body camera angled perfectly. "Sir, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." The Ring doorbell caught at all 12 police vehicles parked at violent angles across our lawn, lights still spinning, neighbors gathered on porches, phone cameras raised. Mrs. Patterson stood in her robe, nodding with grim satisfaction. Mr. Yamamoto was already pulling his security footage, ready to hand it over. "Kayla," Lieutenant Vega's voice cut through the chaos. She wasn't supposed to be here. Dispatchers didn't respond to scenes, but she stood in our doorway in civilian clothes, her badge clipped to her pajama pants. "Tessa's on the line." She held out her phone. On the screen, Tessa's face was streaked with tears, the dispatch center visible behind her. "You said it. You said lake shift and we heard you." I couldn't speak through the oxygen mask and the swelling, but I gave her a thumbs up. She laughed through her tears, the kind of laugh that comes after terror. 309A, The evidence tech arrived, camera already clicking. Every bruise would be photographed, every surface processed. The smart home devices would be cataloged, their recordings uploaded to evidence servers. The backup phone under the couch still recording would become Exhibit A. Dale was lifted to his feet, his work boots dragging lines through Mom's vacuum patterns. He looked at me one last time, and I saw it in his eyes, the recognition that he'd lost. Not to violence, not to another man, but to the system he'd thought he could manipulate. "Just a family disagreement." He tried one more time as they guided him toward the door. Officer Rodriguez paused, looking back at me. "Is that what this was? A family disagreement?" I pulled the oxygen mask away, my voice barely a whisper but clear enough for every body camera to catch. "No, this was attempted murder, and I have 3 months of evidence to prove it." 310A, They carried Dale through the door he'd broken down, past the cameras he'd tried to avoid, through the army of witnesses he'd never calculated for. The sergeant read charges as they walked. Aggravated domestic battery, attempted strangulation, breaking and entering, violation of an emergency protective order. "What order?" Dale's voice cracked. "There's no order." Lieutenant Vega held up her phone, showing the digital timestamp. "There is now, filed electronically at 3:04 a.m., approved by Judge Harrison at 3:05. Technology's amazing, isn't it? The last thing the doorbell camera caught was Dale's head being pushed down into the patrol car, the door slamming with institutional finality. 12 armed officers had swarmed our house in less than 4 minutes. It was the fastest response time in the department's history. The evidence was overwhelming, methodical, and undeniable, not just from that night, but from months of careful documentation. The Ring doorbell footage showed Dale testing the door at 2:17 a.m. The hallway camera captured him removing my bedroom door with predatory patience. The hidden nanny cam recorded the entire assault in night vision clarity. The backup phone under the couch had 37 minutes of audio, including his confession, "Nobody's coming fast enough." But the prosecution's star witness wasn't technology. It was time itself. Every timestamp aligned perfectly. 3A, assault begins. 3:01, lake shift transmitted. 3:02, dispatch initiated. 3:06, breach and entry. 3:10, suspect in custody. The digital breadcrumbs created an unbreakable chain of events that no defense attorney could dispute. The security system logs showed the silent alarm triggered at 3:02. The smart lock recorded his failed attempts starting at 1:15 a.m. My phone's accelerometer registered the violent drop at 3 a.m. Exactly. Even the smart speaker had logged when dispatch audio was remotely accessed 3:04 a.m., creating a real-time record of 12 units responding. Dale's lawyer tried to argue emotional distress, alcohol impairment, a momentary lapse in judgment. But you can't argue with time-stamped footage of methodical door removal. You can't claim spontaneous anger when security cameras show you circling the house at 2:17 a.m., testing entry points like a predator. The photographs were brutal in their honesty. Purple fingerprints around my throat, each one measured and cataloged. The gash on my cheekbone from the nightstand corner, requiring 12 stitches. My shoulder, dislocated from hitting the couch frame. Each injury mapped to specific moments in the footage, creating a visual timeline of escalating violence. Officer Rodriguez testified about finding Dale's hands around my throat. In my 15 years of law enforcement, I've never seen a faster or more coordinated response. 12 units in under 4 minutes. That only happens when one of our own is in danger. Tessa took the stand to explain lake shift how dispatchers create informal safety networks, how 2 words saved my life. We hear people's worst moments every day, she testified. We couldn't save them all, but we could save her. The jury deliberated for 43 minutes. Guilty. Aggravated domestic battery, attempted murder 2nd degree, criminal threatening, violation of protective order, breaking and entering. The judge stacked the sentences instead of running them concurrent 15 to 20 years, no possibility of early release for 5. They led Dale away in chains that jangled like his old tool belt. He looked smaller somehow, ordinary, like weak men always do when their power is stripped away. No last words, no threats, just the shuffle of feet and the click of a closing door. Mom filed for divorce the next day. She's in therapy now, slowly remembering who she was before Dale's shadow fell across our door. We don't talk about that night, but sometimes she squeezes my hand when police sirens pass, a silent acknowledgement of what almost was and what finally ended. The house sold within a month. Mom moved to a condo with proper locks and a doorman. I kept my studio apartment but installed 3 deadbolts and a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Not from fear, from wisdom. The best revenge isn't violence or anger. It's prevention, documentation, and 12 police cars arriving exactly when you need them. Lieutenant Vega had me speak at dispatcher training 6 months later. You saved yourself, she told the room. We just provided backup. But that's not entirely true. I saved myself by becoming part of something larger, a network of voices in the dark, connected by invisible threads of mutual protection. Every night, someone whispers into a headset, "Help me." And every night, someone answers. Dale was wrong about nobody coming fast enough. He just didn't understand that I'd spent 2 years building an army, one timestamp at a time. The revenge wasn't in his arrest or his sentence. It was in the system working exactly as I'd programmed it to work, triggered by 2 words that meant everything to the people who mattered. Lake shift, our code, our connection, our revenge against men who think darkness is their ally. 3:10 a.m. On that October morning, Dale's head disappeared into the patrol car, the door slamming with beautiful finality. The red and blue lights painted victory across my mother's lawn. 12 officers had responded to 2 words from a dispatcher under attack. The bruises faded, the house sold. The nightmares eventually stopped. But that clicking sound, handcuffs locking around his wrists, that sound remains perfect in my memory. Not revenge served cold, but justice served at exactly the right temperature, time-stamped and verified, backed up to 3 different clouds where it will live forever. He's inmate number 47381 now. I'm still Kayla Hart, dispatcher, survivor, and proof that sometimes the best revenge is a perfectly executed emergency response protocol. The red and blue lights that flooded our living room that night weren't just lights. They were the dawn. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm curious, where are you listening from right now? Please share in the comments below so we can connect across distances, just like those dispatch signals that saved my life. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more real experiences and share your own thoughts about justice, survival, or the power of having people who truly have your back. Your story matters too.